Welcome to RealGM Radio. I'm here with Matt Moore, and we're taking stock of the NBA after a wild few days of free agency. Does anybody come close to the Thunder? Will the Lakers or the Warriors do anything? Let's jump in. It is RealGM Radio. I'm Wes Goldberg here with Matt Moore, NBA writer for the Action Network, author of Hardwood Paroxysm on Substack, and the host of the Locked On NBA and Locked On Nuggets podcast, and a favorite guest of ours here on RealGM Radio. We're doing our monthly tiers. Before we jump in, a reminder, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you are following us on your podcast app to get this show every week. Matt, I'll hand over the things to you now. How are we doing our tiers today?
All right, let's just be real straightforward about it. Let's do championship tiers. Let's take a look at who is closest to winning the 2026 NBA championship. Free agency is not done, and I am very curious to see whether we're going to have more major moves in the dead zone of August, whether that's LeBron or Giannis or whatever else. And still waiting on the Bulls to do a bunch of things. I still feel like there's some stuff out there, but enough has happened, I think, to reshape things that we should definitely take a look at it.
I think it's a great call. It's a good way to take stock, kind of just see where things are, because a lot of things have happened. And heck, while we're recording this, things might continue to happen. If that's the case, we'll react in real time, I suppose. But let's jump in with your first tier.
Oklahoma City Thunder by themselves. That's it. And I think that the conversation about OKC has gotten a little ahead of itself. I'm not willing to just be like, yeah, they're going to rattle off 3 out of 5. Yeah, they're going to rattle off 3 in a row. Yeah, they're definitely going back to back. I'm just like, look, a really interesting question is, which team do you think was better, the 2024 Celtics or the 2025 Thunder? And you can say, well, I thought the Thunder were better. Okay, but how much? Because there's no way for you to get to a point where you're like, yeah, they were way better than that Celtics team. They have to be at least comparable. They have to be at least within the same range. If they both competed in the same year, you would have them on the same tier. Okay, if that's the case, and the Celtics didn't even make the conference finals and we're going to be down 3-1 before Tatum's injury, what does that say? And it says that with the CBA, with the injury situation the league is facing now, which it continues to put its head in the sand about, and with just the way that the league is structured in terms of superstar talent, and how often egos and everything else gets in the way of repeat champions going back decades, I'm skeptical that the Thunder are going to just rattle off these championships. But if we're doing this and we're doing an estimation and we're evaluating these teams, the Thunder have to be separate, not because they won the title, but because they have one of the best seasons. They have the best SRS in NBA history. They're the best point differential, and then won the title. That's enough to get them here at the top in a tier by themselves.
I share your skepticism about, oh, wow, start of the dynasty and whatever. Can we just enjoy the one championship that they had? It's the first championship in franchise history.
Right.
Let's just have a good time. Let's have the parade. Let's get drunk, say some weird things, and have a good summer. Why do we have to immediately start projecting? Because once you start projecting forward about how many championships can they win, you set yourself up for disappointment, which seems like a bummer for a team that just won the championship. There should be no disappointment, but they do deserve to be in their own tier, 100%, absolutely. Just look at the roster. They're bringing everybody back. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, congrats, 5-year Supermax extension, most average annual value in league history. Congrats to you, very well deserved. They're bringing everybody back. Nikola Topic comes back into and will be ostensibly a part of things or whatever. They still have a ton of depth. No reason to think they've won one championship, but they've also been a regular season wins machine for 2 years in a row. No reason to suspect that they wouldn't be this coming year. We don't have to spend a ton of time on Oklahoma City. So that's top tier by themselves. That's it. Now we have a second tier?
Yes.
Okay.
And for me, that is 3 teams and 3 teams only. And that's the Houston Rockets, the Denver Nuggets, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Rockets, obviously, they've done 2 things that were really smart. One is getting rid of Jalen Green. 3 things. Getting rid of Jalen Green was really good. Getting rid of Jalen Green for Kevin Durant was even better. And then they built in a lot of redundancy. And so by keeping Jabari Smith is a C- D+ version of Kevin Durant. All right, not the shooter, but I'm talking tall, forward, versatile, defense, length, has some pull-up game, right? If he makes a huge jump, then he can move into being like a B minus Kevin Durant. If Kevin Durant is the A plus, still a massive gap. But if KD's out and you're just like, we need a forward to play his minutes tonight, Jabari Smith can do that. He can make a big jump. I think, especially now that Jalen Green is gone, I think he'll make a big jump. If Fred VanVleet needs to miss a game, they're likely to return Aaron Holiday on cheap deal. If they do that, it's like, oh, Aaron is there to play the veteran pesky player that can hit some threes. Cool. They have Amen Thompson. They have Ken Whitmore still for right now. Steven Adams. Oh, Steven's got a bad ankle. He's going to miss 2 weeks. Don't worry. We got Clint Capella. No problem. They have so much versatility on versatility on versatility, redundancy on redundancy to cover all these type of things. And while I still am kind of like, yeah, I don't know how good this offense is going to be. Like, I just don't know. It was so bad in the playoffs. They flirted with like top 10 in the regular season, touched it for a second, but then fell off huge again. But there's a new model, I think, and this is such a copycat league of OKC. Wasn't a great half-court offense. Good, not great. Not like, oh my gosh, what beautiful basketball. They have so many weapons. Wow. Like, there were so many times in the playoffs when you were like, boy, can they score here? But the model was elite defense and one isocentric elite scorer with an explosive talent around him and Jalen Williams. And the Rockets have that. Like, they have that kind of formula where it's like the offense will probably be better than 15th. It'll be between 15 and 5. And the defense can still be elite. And that formula is probably good enough to get them through everybody but OKC in the West, except for, there'll be a coin flip versus, I think, Denver. And then other than that, though, that's why I think Houston is closer to OKC than Denver is. But it was obviously a marvelous offseason for the Rockets.
Awesome offseason for them. I do want to talk about the offense, but I kind of first want to hash out what the starting five is going to be. Is it going to be Fred VanVleet, Amen Thompson, Alperen Sengun, Kevin Durant? You got those guys in Sharpie as 4 of those guys. The 5th guy could be Tari Eason, Dorian Finney-Smith. Maybe they go ahead and just start Jabari Smith Jr. and move KD to the 3. They can go in a lot of different directions. They'll probably experiment a little bit. Maybe I think most Houston fans are just penciling in Dorian Finney-Smith, but based on his last couple of years, I'm not sure that's his. Maybe he might be best coming off the bench, and it might be better to lean into Tari Eason. But whatever, it doesn't really matter. Reed Shepherd, they're going to need something from him, and this is a big bet in trading away Jalen Green. Jalen Green was not efficient, and they were clearly over Jalen Green, and I get it. The one thing he could do was dribble the basketball, and Houston doesn't have a ton of guys who dribble the basketball at a high level, and Kevin Durant at this stage of his career, I don't know how much you want him in terms of usage, handling the ball. That means Reed Shepherd is going to have to play, and he's going to have to do something. But he was the number 3 pick last year. They really like him. I don't suspect why he wouldn't be able to do that. I do think that offensively, their formula is going to be a lot similar to last year, where it's going to be like miss shots, offensive rebound, the snot out of the basketball, and get putbacks. The only change to that formula is except when Kevin Durant shoots it. Because when Durant shoots it, it's probably going to go in. But when everybody else shoots it, everybody's going to have to crash the glass. They're going to be the top, I think, again, the top offensive rebounding rate team in the NBA. And that's part of their formula, and it works. You combine that with depth, and if they can get out in transition with Amen Thompson and Tari Eason, all these things. But I love the Durant addition for a million reasons. Offensively, it makes a ton of sense. It was a great price, blah, 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 blah. Everybody's talked about it. I love it for 2 guys specifically. I love it for Jabari Smith Jr. because, like you said, what if Kevin Durant could start to teach Jabari Smith Jr. some of the stuff that Durant did in Golden State defensively, in terms of the help side defense and rim protection stuff as a 7-footer, that would be tremendously helpful to Jabari Smith Jr. He's already a good defender, but not a great one. But I love this for Amen Thompson. Kevin Durant, pro's pro, all the things you hear, first one in, last one out, all the cliches, all of it's true. All of it was 100% true with him. Amen Thompson getting to learn from Kevin Durant at this stage of his career, year 3 of his career, I think can make a meaningful difference in Amen Thompson's career trajectory. Being able to watch Kevin Durant go to work, Amen Thompson getting to learn from it. And by the way, everything you hear from Amen Thompson is workhorse, gym rat, all that stuff is true from what you hear. I've never spent any time around him, but if all that stuff is true, that's just going to help him being able to watch and learn from Kevin Durant and see, okay, that's what it takes to be an elite player, because we know Amen Thompson has that. He's got that upside.
I mean, you talked about the guys that can dribble. Like, I'm just ready. Like, I think Amen showed so many moments of playmaking ability.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is so much more important than like, I don't know that they need shot creation. I think they need playmaking ability.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've got, like, if you give Şengün an easy shot, he's going to knock it down. If you give Fred VanVleet an easy shot, he's going to knock it down. And Cam Whitmore, I think, can create a little bit of stuff on his own, but he could also be a good spot-up shooter, and Reed's probably going to be a spot-up shooter. So if Amen is able to make that leap from just a playmaking standpoint, and I thought that he was really, like, getting it, and I thought that he actually had moments in the playoffs, too, where he was, like, getting it. I just think he's going to make a big leap. Like, I think he'll be a most improved player candidate. I think he's going to be a borderline all-star. Like, I just think Amen Thompson is it. I think he's their guy. And I think that that's going to be very apparent by the end of the season. So I'm not as concerned about that as I was. For me, it's mostly just like, can you construct a system where everything clicks into place and makes sense? And the answer is probably no. The answer is probably like, it's a little clunky, it's a little rough, but they've got enough efficiency in terms of individual talent to make it work. And that to me is, I think, where it gets to. I think the offense will be better this season than last for sure.
Yeah. You already hinted at a Cam Whitmore trade. It feels like that is something that could still happen. And I don't know what that gets you. Maybe it gets you an asset. Maybe it gets you another point guard type, ball handler type that can come off the bench or something like that. But maybe that's something that comes down the pike here in the next couple of months. You had Denver and Cleveland as well in this tier. I'm not surprised by Denver being in this tier. I like their offseason. They add Bruce Brown. They add Jonas Valanciunas and that Dario Saric for Valanciunas swap. The big thing, obviously, was trading Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson. It saved them a ton of money, allowed them the ability to do all these other things. They add Tim Hardaway Jr. on a minimum contract yesterday. This is being sold as a home... Nah, I shouldn't say that. That's probably unfair. I think it is a home run of an offseason. I think it's very interesting that the two guys that were in charge of things, Michael Malone and Calvin Booth last year, their big fight was play the young guys. No, I don't want to play the young guys. I want to play the veterans. Well, they're both out. The new GMs are here, and they both said, we're going to get the veterans back. We're going to do it. We're going to turn Michael Porter Jr. into another piece. And kind of, we've always talked about, can you turn Michael Porter Jr. into multiple pieces? They basically did that here between getting a guy on a lower salary and then adding more players because of that. But I think it's a great offseason. I think it definitely solidifies them in this tier where they were always sort of like, on a good night, they were definitely in this tier. On a bad night, they were a little bit lower. To me, this offseason kind of puts them strictly in that tier with Houston.
Yeah. A lot of this is just as simple as, if you go back and you look at the 5-man lineups, the starters were still elite last year.
Yep.
This is an elite team from a starter standpoint. So the problem wasn't just the non-Joker minutes. That was the problem in years past. And they helped with that with Valanciunas, hopefully. Although I will say, like, DeAndre Jordan was plus 3.3 last year. Or minus 3.3, I'm sorry. Minus 3.3 net rating. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was acceptable. DJ gave them pretty good minutes. Your hope is to shave that off to get it to be about a minus 1.5. If you get it down to minus 1.5 and you're only losing by 2 points per 100, less than 2 points per 100 possessions across the, 15 minutes the Joker sits, that you get back to them winning all of his minutes by double digits, because there was a big drop off in the stagger minutes when Jamal Murray or MPJ or Aaron Gordon in those late first quarter, late third quarter minutes, those minutes dropped off. And now you're likely to have a much higher ceiling here where you can be like, okay, Jamal's going to sit. We're going to bring in Bruce Brown. We're going to have Bruce Brown and Christian Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. or Peyton Watson. And now we have 3 at least C-level to B+ defenders on the floor, even if you don't stagger Cam Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that floor raise with Joker is so considerable.
Yes.
It also means that you no longer have the ability versus the starters to be like, we can pick on Jamal Murray, or we can pick on Michael Porter Jr., or we can force a switch, and then we can pick on both of them at the same time. Can't do that anymore because Cam Johnson is such a light years improvement over Michael Porter Jr. The other thing is that Cam has a little bit of a floor game. Like, he makes reads. Like, he's a smart player that is able this is one thing I've wanted Denver to do for a long time. Just get like normal NBA players that are not so one-dimensional that it's like they're elite at this one narrow type of thing, and then they can't do anything else. Like Cam Johnson, you can give the ball to with 3 seconds on the clock, and he can dribble and create a shot. And just having that ability is considerable, especially in the bench minutes without Joker, but it also matters in the minutes with Joker, so Joker doesn't have to take every single grenade. The Valanciunas ad, look, Pelicans fans, Kings fans, they will tell you about like how frustrated and out they were on JV by the end of it. JV's a drop big. Like that's who he is. Like he's a drop big in this league at this point. That's fine. You needed a little bit better drop than you got from DeAndre Jordan and better rebounding because DJ can't move. JV can move. Their rebounding alone in that second unit will be considerably better. They have so many more lineup constructs they can get to now where it's like, okay, let's even remove Joker from the equation. They're going to run a 2 big Aaron Gordon, Jonas Valanciunas lineup or Deron Holmes. And then they're going to kill on the glass. And they're going to play 3 guards. They're going to play Julian Strother, Bruce Brown, and they're going to slide in Cam Johnson at the 3. Great. You've got shooting, you've got defense, you've got versatility. They are just able to do so much more in building lineups with this roster rather than last year where it was like, well, the starters better win by 20 because otherwise they're going to lose. And that to me is the big gap here.
I'm all in on the Valanciunas edition. I understand that maybe a couple of other fan bases are a little bit out on him, but let's also keep in mind it was New Orleans and it was Sacramento. Little bit of a different context playing in Denver. And we have seen guys play with Jokic and have an opportunity to play deep into the playoffs and pick up their game, right? Russell Westbrook is the obvious example. I like Valanciunas more than that. I like him because he's basically a human dumbbell. The guy has so much snot factor to his game. He's all muscle. And with Aaron Gordon removed from this part of the conversation, it started to feel like Denver was a little bit of a finesse team too often. Jokic is not a finesse player, or Aaron Gordon is not a finesse player. It kind of felt like everybody else was starting to get into finesse player territory, that this team was getting a little bit finesse. I like the fact that they have a guy who could throw a punch in Jonas Valanciunas. Mm-hmm. And every team kind of needs that guy, and I like that they're bringing him off the bench. I'm glad you mentioned Deron Holmes. I loved him coming to the draft. Super bummed out that he got hurt for his rookie season. I think he could be something. I don't know if it'll be this season, but I like him a lot for their team. And so now you add these vets to the roster. And you have maybe a little bit of we saw some stuff from Jalen Pickett, Julian Strother, Peyton Watson. They definitely all improved last year. So you combine their improvement with some added veteran depth here, and I think it makes a lot of sense. You already nailed it. It raises their floor. The question for Denver now is, what's their ceiling? And you look at this roster, the ceiling is still, what can Jamal Murray be in the playoffs? They have not escaped that. I don't know that was the goal to escape that. You could look at Jamal Murray's numbers last regular season and make a really a strong argument that was his best regular season of his career last year. He's still a really good player, but he'll be 28 years old, ostensibly in his prime, theoretical prime. At the end of the day, they still just need him to be awesome to win another championship the way he was awesome in 2023. But they raised the floor. That was the goal in the offseason. I think they deserve to be here. Why would you have the Cavs and not the Knicks in the same tier?
Because the Cavs are way better. Way, way better. This Knicks team should not have gotten past Boston. Like, we can be honest there. Mm-hmm. Like, it's more about Boston's faults and how they were vulnerable, and they left themselves vulnerable because of their insane obsession with winning the math game by so much instead of having a balance. Like, they were going to win that series anyway before Tatum's injury. But the Cavs were way better. Way better. Now, do I have concerns about... I really hate this because I like Kenny a lot as a coach. I liked his work in Brooklyn. I thought he did a great job this year. But I had a lot of faith in him to manage the playoffs correctly. And then in game 1 without Darius Garland, he started Sam Merrill versus the Pacers. And I was immediately like, oh God, this has gone sideways. Mm-hmm. If you do not recognize that the way to beat this Pacers team is you got to out physical them with defense and then be able to hold up offensively, then you were doomed from the start. And that's exactly what the Cavaliers did. Like they didn't lose that series because of injuries. They could have won that series with their injuries. They lost that series because of coaching. And that's a huge question mark for me with Atkinson. He's going to have to be better at that. But they move Ty Jerome. They add Lonzo Ball. Really good addition to add some more defense. I keep waiting for them to find the fifth guy. And it's like, look, if we can get to the playoffs, like they're going to kill in the regular season again.
Yep.
What's the reason why they wouldn't? Mobley's going to be even better.
Mm-hmm.
There's zero reason why they're not going to be as good in the regular season, even if they don't win as many games. They may not win 60. They win 57. That's fine, right? They're still going to be a top seed in the East, probably the number one. And look at the teams that now are in front of them. And it's like, you look at the East, like this is why every tier has an East team that probably doesn't belong there, because the East is just going to be so weak. But the Knicks hire Mike Brown. Good hire. Love Mike. Who doesn't love Mike Brown? Everyone loves Mike Brown. Really good coach. I think it's a slight upgrade over Tibbs.
Yep.
They still have this problem. The other guys do not like that they traded for Cat. They signed up for one thing and they got another. And that's very evident. I don't think OG Anunoby is very happy there. So they got to figure all this out. They're light years away from that defensive identity that they had in 2024, where that made them really dangerous, where it was effort and defense and a little bit of Brunson. And now, like by the end of that playoff run, it was just like, well, it's like some defense, but like a lot of Brunson. And then like maybe McBride or Landry Shamet will give us some good. Come on, man. So I am unimpressed with this New York Knicks team. I think they were worse than their record. I do not think that they were better than Boston. They should have been, and like they were way closer to Detroit than they should have been.
Yeah.
I think the gap between Cleveland and the rest of these teams is substantial.
So I agree with you. The only reason I asked the question was to tee you up, because you look at the Vegas markets here, and I know you're very aware of this, but they've got the Knicks over the Cavs, right there with the Cavs, depending on what book you're looking at. And you've got the Cavaliers just in a separate tier from them. And I thought that was interesting. I like the Lonzo Ball for Okoro swap, even if you have to sacrifice Ty Jerome. To me, that's a net plus when you consider all the salary cap ramifications of having Okoro and bringing back Jerome versus just letting Jerome walk and then swapping Okoro, who wasn't playing for you anyway in games that really mattered. Go get Lonzo Ball. He's still a very good defender. Does all the things that Kenny Atkinson likes in that he takes threes at a very high level and takes a lot of them. So we'll see what happens with Cleveland. Are the Knicks in your next tier, though?
Yeah.
Okay, so because I didn't want to skip ahead too much, but I'll just do a quick thing on the Knicks here. I like their additions. I like Yabusele. I like Jordan Clarkson a lot. I like Mike Brown. That's Mark Stein had been on top of this. That's where they're going. We got the official, I guess that's Shams' job now, is to be the official guy on this now. So he got the report on that. My only question that with the Knicks, with Mike Brown as head coach, I think he'll do more experimenting in the regular season, which I think they could desperately use. They have a lot of great pieces that we like. Is it going to be the same starting five, right? We know that Tibbs was married to Josh Hart in that starting five. That became a liability in the playoffs when you had teams putting their big on him and sagging off and then crowding the thing, and then they were able to put a wing on Cat, and that really debilitated the Brunson Cat two-man game. Will they switch it out? Will Jordan Clarkson be a spot starter? Will they go with Miles McBride as a starter? Heck, could they go even bigger with Cat at the 4, Mitchell Robinson at the 5, like we saw them experiment with under Tibbs a little bit in the postseason? Just something I'm looking at. Will they switch it up a little bit under Mike Brown? I'm sure they'll experiment more, but will they switch up the starting 5 altogether? I think that there's an argument to do it.
Yeah, I think the problem becomes like if you lose Josh Hart's contribution to the Hart grit and hustle in the regular season, what does he do? What's his benefit there?
They can do it off the bench.
Yeah, but like, okay. Then your starting unit is still soft.
Mm-hmm.
If you put in Clarkson. If you do the double big, you can make it work. Like I like the double big lineups. I think Cat works better with double big lineups as a power forward. But then your defense is still suspect.
They can still go Yabu. They can go Yabusele at the 4 now if they don't feel comfortable starting Mitchell Robinson just yet.
You have less rim protection then. Like
fair.
You can't defend well enough with Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. You can't do it. Mm-hmm. You can't be an elite defense with Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. You can do it with one of them. You can't do it with both of them.
And that's why I think they need to be an elite offense.
I think Yabusele and Jordan Clarkson are really good additions for a team looking to go from 40 wins to 50. Mm-hmm. But like, this is a championship tier discussion.
Yep.
Did Jordan Clarkson and Yabusele move you closer to a championship? Do we think that? Really?
If all they do is eat up some innings in the regular season so that these guys are a little bit more fresh for the postseason, maybe. But I think I'm generally with you here. I don't know that it feels like you want to like the Knicks more because of the names and the Knicks and the fact that they got to the Eastern Conference Finals last year and all these things, and then you're nailing it. I mean, when you've got there's unsolvable holes on the roster that they put together, right? It's self-afflicted issues. And that's why they fired Tibbs, is because they couldn't change the roster and they had to do something with the coach. And I don't know that I like Mike Brown. I don't know that he's a huge upgrade over Tibbs enough to the point. He's sort of like a Jordan Clarkson, Yabusele add as a head coach. It's like, okay. But we've seen Mike Brown's limitations in the postseason just like we've seen Tibbs.
And like, look, if the Cavs melt down again, the Knicks can win the East. They can absolutely win the East, but also, and that's why and like, I can't justify putting them any lower, even with all these reservations. And I can't sit here and be like, they're going to win 45 games. No, like, they're probably going to win 50 to 55. Like, they're probably going to be in that range, and it'll be fine. Do I think that I feel like they are once again going to be a team that we look at and go, this team can't win a championship, which is what we did. And then they made it to the conference finals, which is really exciting. I'm just not taking that and being like, yeah, they're a real contender. I'm kind of like, they have to be here because they play in the East and they got there. I do want to give them credit for that. But I mean, look, you talked about the betting market. The other team that I have from the East, both of the teams I have in this tier from the East, I like their upside a lot better based on the odds.
All right, give me the rest of the tier then.
Knicks, Pistons, Clippers, Wolves, Magic, and the Spurs.
Ooh, we're getting spicy here now. Okay. We talked about the Knicks. You know what? I can't help it. Give me the Spurs case. I'm going to skip ahead. Give me the Spurs case.
Okay. Let's assume that the blood clot, Victor's been on the Nike tour. Obviously, he can fly. Like, these are all fine. Like, every indication is that he's going to be fine. It's not just that he came in with such an impossibly high impact as a rookie. It's that the year-over-year jump was absolutely insane. If that team had sniffed the playoffs, you would have had to have a real conversation about Victor Wembanyama as most valuable player in the league. And that's an insane thing to say with Jokic and Shea at the top. But that's how impactful that kid is when he still, for the most part, didn't know what he was doing a lot of the time. And he gets closer to that every single second he plays. That upside is absolutely ridiculous. Do I love the Harper Castle fit? No, I do not. I don't love that. That feels like a problem that you're going to have to solve eventually. That's a problem for the future Spurs. But Harper doesn't have it going, no problem, because Stephon Castle has made a big leap, and all of a sudden it's a great night, and Castle scores 35 in a Spurs win. They still have all these assets to improve in the course of the season. They can move Keldon Johnson. They can move Devin Vassell. They can move Jeremy Sohan. They can still do those trades, but like now, tomorrow, next week, in August, in training camp, in the regular season, at the deadline. They have all this upside to improve. Fox and Wembanyama will get more on the same page. They barely play together. They have rebounding. They have defense. They will probably have better shooting. They will have more offensive explosion. The shooting is probably the biggest question mark, and that's fair, but we're seeing more teams succeed with a pure defensive approach, and there is not a better defensive force in the league than Victor Wembanyama. That it's internal development. It's more cohesion. It's not dealing with the drama that resulted from Pop's stroke. Like, that's going to be really hard for guys to deal with. Like, that's just an emotionally upsetting experience, and having to deal with all of that. You're settled. You know the organization. You know where you're headed. I feel like they've got the right guys. Dylan Harper is by far the second best player in this draft. Some people thought he might be the best. There's huge upside for them to have back-to-back Rookie of the Year winners. We talk so much. We get lured in by, ooh, they added this guy. Oh, they added that guy. But like, the Spurs are just going to get better because they have a foundation where their 5-man units are still going to be a nightmare. I think that they underperformed last year, and this is the year that they're ripe for an improvement. So I'm willing to put them here.
I love the Luke Cornett edition for them. I think we're going to get by December, January, we're going to be like, wow, we probably didn't talk enough about how big of a deal that was. I think it could sneakily be one of the better offseason free agent additions in the league this year. He won't start, I don't think. I think you still start Wemby at the 5, and that's fine, but he could play 20 minutes a game, solid center minutes, backing up Victor Wembanyama, playing alongside Victor Wembanyama when you get into certain lineups. I love that addition for them. I thought it was really smart. I am hesitant to go as far as you are in terms of putting them in the same tier as a team like Minnesota, for instance, right? Just because I've seen it with the Timberwolves and I haven't seen it yet with the Spurs, but that I tend to be slower on things in terms of projecting ahead, and I see where you're coming from. Mitch Johnson is not Greg Popovich. I'm not sure what he is as a head coach. The De'Aaron Fox fit to me is still a little weird. It felt like an awesome trade at the time, and it was definitely a home run when you consider what the Spurs gave up, which was essentially nothing. It doesn't make as much sense now after having drafted Dylan Harper and all these things. And I don't know. I don't know that De'Aaron Fox is the point guard for a team that's going to go ahead and compete for a championship. I think he's a really good player, but I don't know that he's that yet. And their depth chart is still pretty thin to me. And you're counting a lot on Dylan Harper to be an instant impact guy, which is, he's very good, but he's a rookie. We don't really know for that. So I love the Spurs roster. I think they're going to be in the playoffs for sure. The main point that you made is probably the right main point in terms of Victor Wembanyama might be just so good that all that stuff I just said doesn't even matter.
Yep.
I just have a hard time. Again, I tend to not project as aggressively forward as maybe you do, but I love the idea here, and it's fun and it's interesting and it's surprising. So
I think the tier below this one has a lot of ways for their ability to compete to drop out from underneath them. I don't like the Spurs. It's like, what could happen? Well, Victor Wembanyama could get a blood clot. Like,
right.
That's, and so if you look beyond that, it's just like, look, they're not really dependent. They are not short on guys. They don't have a short rotation. And it might just be, will say this, everyone got really excited about the Spurs last year. And then it was just like Vassell and Johnson and everybody was just kind of meh. It was just not great. They need somebody to be great this year, but I also think they have the capability to do that even in a tough Western Conference.
So you included Minnesota here, and when I was kind of sketching out my version of these tiers, I initially put the Timberwolves in that tier where you had Houston, Denver, and Cleveland. I had the same kind of second tier once you get past OKC. And then I wrote down their depth chart, and I was like, am I sure? And I don't know if that's sort of where you ended up coming out in your calculus here, but starting five for Minnesota: Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle. They bring back on a 3-year, $100 million deal, player option on that third season. They still have Rudy Gobert there. They bring back Naz Reid, 5-year, $125 million deal. I like the deal for both Randle. I like the deal for Reid. I think that's fine. They lose Nickeil Alexander-Walker to Atlanta. They're going to replace him, I guess, with Terrence Shannon Jr., Jalen Clark. They bring back Joe Ingles, which seems more of like a locker room addition than anything else. Dante DiVincenzo, I think they're hoping for maybe a more stable second season in Minnesota from him. And then they have Rob Dillingham still, who they traded up into the top 10 of last year's draft for, who they very much like, but everybody knew it was going to be a slow process for him. Is he ready to take on more stuff here in that second season? Because they need ball handling. It felt like we were starting to see Mike Conley age right in front of our eyes as we got into the postseason and further into the playoffs there. There's a lot of ways to mitigate that. A better season from DiVincenzo. Does he ultimately become a starter? Does Rob Dillingham take more off of Conley's plate? All these things. For a team that was been in the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row, when I sketched out the depth chart, I had a little bit more questions than I felt comfortable with. So I don't mind you kind of putting them a tier down, despite the fact, again, with the success they've had over the last couple seasons and the fact that they have Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. I just think losing Nickeil is actually a pretty big deal because he was such a stable presence in terms of he'll hit a big shot for you. He'll make big threes, and he's a defensive weapon for anybody that Jaden couldn't defend. Nickeil could. And for anybody that Nickeil struggled with, Jaden could. And now you're down to just Jaden because I don't think Terrence Shannon Jr. is at that level yet. Maybe he makes that leap. Maybe he's just going to be like a really great defender. I like Terrence Shannon Jr. a lot. I actually like most of their bench guys quite a bit.
Me too.
Dillingham probably does get more time here and starts to see like more time available. I wouldn't be surprised if they moved on from Conley at some point this season. A lot of this is just like, look, Anthony Edwards and a team of dogs is going to be competitive in the West, and they're going to have they're going to have a chance to make the Western Conference Finals. And I thought coaching was what killed them versus the Thunder. I think they were closer to that team in terms of what they were capable of than what they showed because their coaching got in their heads. And this is why the Naz Reid deal I actually did not like. I think that's a lot of money for Naz Reid. I think it's a lot of money for a guy that is a playoff, not liability, but he is very borderline second to second in the playoffs about whether it's positive or negative. I think Julius had a better postseason than Nas did.
Yep.
And it's too much of a crutch for Finch to lean into that small ball stuff when it's like, look, you're just gonna, when you have Rudy Gobert, you have to play Rudy Gobert. Until he stops being effective, you need to play Rudy Gobert. If they go up against Houston and Houston goes super small, are they going to resist the idea of going to Nas? If they go double big, is Finch going to try and counter program? How does that work out? If they play Denver, what does that look like? I think there's a lot of questions, but like, look, Minnesota's had Denver's number consistently for the last 2 years. That alone, if it's like this team we know can beat most of these teams in the West, they have to be there. Where it's like you can nitpick about. I think your concerns about the depth is reasonable. If they get hit with injuries, Houston can get hit with injuries and be fine. If the Wolves get hit with injuries, they are sunk. They are doomed. But at the same time, it would look at the path that they're going to have to go through. It's like, what team are you like? Minnesota absolutely cannot beat them except for OKC. There's no team that you're going to look at and be like, they've got no shot.
Right.
They might be able to outscore Houston. They might be able to outdefend Denver. And the rest of the West, honestly, to me, is like a big, big question mark. So I think Minnesota can make it, but they have to kind of shoot the gap. They are not a serious contender. These are all teams that it's like the window's there, but things are going to have to go just right for you in order to make the finals.
Yeah, I like the way that you framed. I think that's exactly right. The Conley thing feels like the piece that could be moved, and maybe they find an upgrade. Sneaky, one of my favorite Damian Lillard destinations. Obviously not for this season, but maybe for next season. That would be kind of fun at the very least. I don't know that Damian Lillard would choose Minneapolis, but we'll see. Probably not. Is this our new 2-timeline team, Matt?
A little bit.
Kind of feels like it, right?
A little bit.
They're trying to do both here, but you look at the way that this roster is trending, and they're doing it. If you were going to do the 2-timeline thing, this is the way to do it, where you're slowly acquiring players, letting them slow develop. You're not throwing too much at them too soon. Dillingham is a perfect example. You bring back Randall, you bring back Reed, you still have Gobert there, all these things. But just like you said about Victor Wembanyama, Minnesota could have a lot of these issues solved with another leap from Anthony Edwards, which I have no reason to think that he couldn't make another leap. I mean, he just keeps doing it. So I also sneaky like the Behringer addition for them, the draft pick that they got. Another friend, basically the 19-year-old Rudy Gobert. They're like, learn from Rudy Gobert. I just think that feels like it would work. So I like it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do all these teams, but I do want to talk about Orlando. I want
to talk about Detroit.
Okay, let's talk about Detroit. Go for it.
Because I think Orlando, like 30-second version, to me, Orlando is just like they are clearly bringing in new coaching talent, and I think that they needed that in order to revitalize the offense. Tyus Jones gives them a stable presence at point guard, which means that if Jalen Suggs misses more time, they've got a replacement. The addition of Desmond Bane is huge, and it's a really great fit. It's a perfect guy to be the third guy with Paolo and Franz. Paolo and Franz get better. They still have all that center depth. They have different lineups they can concoct. Bane fills a lot of those gaps. Suggs will be back. The Magic are going to be good. Like they're going to win 50+ games. I feel pretty confident in that. They don't have the injury issues of last year. I
have concerns about their 3-point shooting still. That you're asking a lot of Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane is doing a lot of work in these lineups.
So I want to ask you about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we think that KCP just lost the ability to shoot? Do we think that all of these guys whose 3-point shooting was terrible, do we genuinely think that that's a talent thing, or do we think that that's a coaching and scheme thing?
I think it's a coaching scheme personnel thing a little bit. It also, if you just look at KCP and his age curve, it would make sense for him to dip a little bit in terms of 3-point shooting. But yeah, I think it's a very fair question to ask. And it just feels like, why is it that Orlando can never have a good 3-point shooter? And at some point, you're the common denominator, right? It's just you as a team. So I don't know. I thought the Tyus Jones thing was a nice piece of business for them. I liked it a lot at first, and then I started thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's okay. I think it's a net positive for them. I would have preferred they get somebody a little bit more dynamic when they lost Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony wasn't doing a ton of work for them, but like I liked Malik Monk for them or something. This might have just been like sort of my expectations going in. Just like a bench scorer, a guy who could really just do something. Tyus Jones, I like the assist to turnover ratio stuff. He's not forcing the issue. He's not getting into the paint and kicking out. I don't know what he's doing at the end of the day more than just bringing the ball up the court and then passing it to Paolo Banchero so that he can turn the ball over.
So I think, again, to me, this gets back into, can they land the coaching hire? If they get Jared Dudley, if they reshape this coaching bench and add in an offensive mind to just restructure, because my understanding is that there was a frustration in the locker room over how the offense was structured. They've got to improve it, and they're committed to doing that. A lot of it is just like, would you rather have Cole Anthony and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones? I would rather have Desmond Bane. I would rather have Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones. It's not that individually, it's like, oh, that's such a huge jump. It's just more like, hey, Cole was really fun, but a little bit more erratic. Tyus is the very definition of stable.
Mm-hmm.
He's just stable, which shows you how messed up the Suns were that they couldn't benefit from that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tyus was like looking for starter money 2 years ago. And now is like bouncing around as like as a minimum contract guy. And that's insane to me.
Stable's the exact right word to use for him too. I remember talking to people in Memphis when Tyus Jones was keeping that whole thing afloat during the John Morant stuff. And everybody you ask, how is this happening? How are you still winning games? Tyus Jones. Every single time.
Yeah.
They need to bring back Mo Wagner. Why? Because we need the brothers together, and that's really it. I hope that they bring him back. I don't know if that's changing.
I like their young guys too. I think that their young guys actually have a lot of like.
I like Anthony Black a lot.
Yeah, I think they have more. Like those guys have shown flashes. I think they're going to continue to improve. And getting Jace Richardson, I thought was a really good grab by them in the draft too. Detroit is the one I cannot understand why Detroit fans are so like. They're like panicked. And I'm like, why? Okay, you want a Nikhil. I get that. I understand that. Nikhil's really good.
Every fan base did. This is the Pistons fans are finally figuring out what it's like to be like, oh, we have a mid-level exception and it actually matters for us. What can we do? Who can we use it on? Join the club, Detroit.
And like, NAW is a great shooter and defender, and he's found his role in the league in that. Their problem in the Knicks series was that without Jaden Ivey, they did not have enough creation. That was why the Dennis Schroeder minutes were so important.
Mm-hmm. Your
Dennis Schroeder minutes should never be that important, Kings. It should never matter. So what did they do instead of Nikhil, who is not a creator? Let's be clear. He is like finishes the play. He can drive and hit a layup. He can make plays in transition. He can make based passing reads, but he is 3-and-D. That's who Nikhil is. They had Karis LeVert, who was a gunner in Brooklyn. I get it. If you pay attention to what he turned into in Cleveland the past 3 seasons, Karis is a great playmaker. He was leading the league in bench assists at one point in both of the last 2 seasons. He is an incredible guy for actually just creating offense that isn't just him shooting. He's not a gunner anymore. He's learned to be decent on defense, slight plus. He's learned to be a playmaker. So you have more versatility around Cade and in the non-Cade lineups. Duncan Robinson,
one last point. Atlanta might have won that trade, the LeVert for DeAndre Hunter trade.
Yeah.
LeVert was good for Atlanta down the stretch. I just wanted to throw that in there. You're right. I agree with everything you just said. Tell me about Duncan Robinson.
You know this. Duncan, I don't know how he did this. 2 years ago, he went from being, he's the white guy that shoots threes. He went from that to being, hey, what if he's also a guy who busts up switches? Oh, and if you get him in certain positions, he's able to actually play make for others. Like he sees the floor and is a versatile, like he is a lot closer to Joe Ingles in his prime in a much healthier and more athletic spot than he is to be in Jason Capono. Like Duncan's a versatile weapon. And I'm always going to be terrified that you invest in a guy from Miami and then it winds up being like, oh, he was just this in Miami. Like, for the love of God, Cavs, quit relying on Max Strus. But again, I just look at this and I go, okay, can he shoot? Absolutely. Can he also create? Yes. So you now have Cade and Jaden Ivey back and Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson. You have connectors, facilitators, creators, and shooters. in multiple spots.
Yep.
Alongside two really quality bigs. I thought Durham was really good in the playoffs. His plus minus was not because of the lineups that he was in and who he was facing, but he's got a lot more passing chops than I thought he was capable of. They'll miss Beasley's three-point shooting for sure, but you know how Beasley got that? By being a quality shooter in a system that generated those shots. They're still going to generate those shots. They've still got quality shooters, even if Malik they're not going to be good as Malik. So to me, Detroit got better. I think Detroit might be better than the Knicks. Like, I think they are solidly in conversation for being the third best team in the Eastern Conference right now.
I think they can get there. I think I would throw Orlando in that mix too, but they could definitely get there. I love the Duncan Robinson addition for them. And you put Robinson and LeVert on this team. What they were missing was a guy to get the ball between Cade Cunningham and Asar Thompson, Tobias Harris, and these other guys too. They needed those connecting pieces. And having Duncan Robinson and LeVert out there, whether they're playing alongside Cade Cunningham or helping lift those units when Cade Cunningham's on the bench, those guys are going to help get the ball to where it needs to be. Duncan Robinson is going to be a phenomenal fit. That issue of you leave the Heat and that whole thing, and the Heat culture polish wears off a little bit, and now what are you left with? That's a real thing in the NBA. I don't think it's going to be real for Duncan Robinson. I actually think he's going to thrive. I think he's going to be better in Detroit than he's been the last couple of years in Miami, because in Miami, he always had to play in these lineups that didn't really work for him, right? He had to play alongside Tyler Hero or alongside an aging Kyle Lowry or these other players. In Detroit, he's going to be bracketed by guys with size and real defensive chops like Cade Cunningham, who I thought was challenged defensively in the playoffs in a good way. I think he's going to be forced to grow on that end. Asar Thompson obviously is a world-class defender, and everybody else that they have on that roster. I think it's going to be a great fit for him. And as a movement shooter, forget about it. He's going to impact that game. He's going to create space when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And I'm glad you pointed out the part of the playmaking stuff. He can attack a second side. He could do stuff. He'll get Jalen Duren on those little dump off passes. He can attack the basket. He'll do all that stuff. I still think that they need more from the center spot. I think Duren needs to make that leap that every Pistons fan has been waiting for. Isaiah Stewart's still there. We like him. So I think Asar Thompson's going to take another leap. I thought Tobias Harris was really stable for them. I share your enthusiasm for Detroit. I loved them last year. Maybe the best story of the year outside of Indiana, I suppose, until the very end. But yeah, I'm there with you. Anybody else in this tier that you want to talk about before we get to our next one?
I put the Clippers here out of respect for the season that they had last year. They might be a lot worse. I still don't trust the injuries. Brooke Lopez is a fascinating addition behind Zoo. I think that's a really interesting fit. Them adding all the defense and what they're trying to do. I still am kind of like, yeah, I don't know, man. Your leaders are James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. I don't think you can win a title until
Never
that
trust
changes.
the Clippers.
I'm just not going to believe it.
Exactly. Next tier.
All right. So this tier is it's creaky floorboards. Like, you're a little worried when you step on them that you're going to get absolutely just dumped through the bottom into the ocean. It's Golden State. It's Milwaukee. It's Atlanta. It's the Lakers. It's Philadelphia. Outside of Atlanta, I don't like any of these teams. I don't like any of these rosters. I don't feel good about any of these teams. But the Warriors have Steph and Jimmy and Dre, and the Bucks have Giannis, and the Hawks have I think a really good roster that I couldn't put in that top tier, but are very close to joining it, or second tier rather, third tier. The Lakers have Luka and LeBron, I guess, and that's about it. And then the Philadelphia 76ers are the Philadelphia 76ers. So I can't put the Sixers lower. I can't put the Sixers higher. Everyone's going to have the Sixers in this mid tier, right? We're all going to put them in the middle because we're like, well, they could be really bad with the injuries. Oh, but they could be really good if they're healthy. And so we're going to put them in the middle, but it's not accurate. Like, the Sixers are either the Sixers are either tier 2 or tier 7.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be anything in between.
That's right. Right. We're hedging our bets. That's 100% correct on Philadelphia. Who knows what they're going to do? I don't. Whatever. I'm so sick of talking about Philadelphia. So that's right. So there's also, you could put still under construction signs on this for the Lakers, the Warriors, and I guess the Bucks to a lesser degree. I don't know how much more work they have to do after everything they did. we've both talked and written and all this stuff about Miles Turner already and that everything that they did. But Milwaukee, obviously all in on whatever these next 2 seasons are, and just trying to keep Giannis in Milwaukee, I suppose, is real. The thing that they did in waiving and stretching Damian Lillard, signing Miles Turner, all these things. I think net they're worse than they were last year because Miles Turner is an improvement over Brook Lopez, but not having Damian Lillard, which they weren't going to have anyway. But who's running point guard for Milwaukee? Bucks fans will be, oh, it's point Giannis. You keep hearing point Giannis coming out of Milwaukee. Okay, cool. It's just going to be Giannis, Miles Turner pick and roll over and over and over again, pick and pop over and over and over again. When the Bucks work, Giannis has a pick and roll partner, somebody who can set him up, whether it was Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Damian Lillard, whoever it was. And I'm sorry, that ain't Kevin Porter Jr. So we'll see what happens with Milwaukee. Maybe they can turn Kyle Kuzma into something. Who knows? I don't know. The Warriors, they still need to sign a center. I don't know if anything's changed since we started recording, but they seem like the leader in the clubhouse for Al Horford. There's other names that they can go at. They're going to get somebody there to fill the center position. It's just a matter of who and how good that player is. The Lakers, ditto for center for them. The Lakers stuff, can we talk about the Lakers? I feel like we don't talk about the Lakers enough. So Brian Windhorst this morning talks about the possibility of LeBron getting traded this summer.
Yeah.
And he had previously said it's not going to happen. And now he's starting to back off and said, now I've had some different conversations that I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm having some other conversations lately. I'm not as convinced that he can't get traded anymore. This to me is fascinating. So I came up with a couple of LeBron trades if you'd like to hear them.
Let's go.
Okay. So I'm stealing this one from Eric Pincus from Bleacher Report, who wrote this one up, but I wanted to at least include it at the top of this conversation. LeBron goes to Cleveland. So really quick, LeBron has a no trade clause. Everybody knows this. He gets to pick. So I tailored this list to teams that LeBron would at least theoretically be like, yep, I'll play there. LeBron goes to Cleveland. Garland goes to the Jazz. Jared Allen to the Lakers. A bunch of other stuff is moving. Cleveland gets a couple of second-round picks for their troubles of moving off of 2 starters. I think it's interesting. I don't love it for anybody except for maybe the Jazz, but that's about it. What if they just straight up said, get rid of all these middlemen. We'll deal with you directly, Lakers. We'll give you Jared Allen, DeAndre Hunter, Lonzo Ball gets to return to the Lakers, and you just give us LeBron and a first-round pick. And LeBron gets to finish his career in Cleveland in a weakened Eastern Conference, and he gets to make a run at this thing.
The second apron makes this so almost impossible. Like, it just doesn't make it feasible. That's the problem. Like, I don't mind this idea of bringing LeBron back. I think it's actually like a really fascinating concept if you were to do kind of what you had suggested and just be like, look, this is Mitchell and Mobley, and that's the future. And then LeBron is going to try and get him over the hump right now. I don't mind that. The feasibility of it with the second apron makes this so difficult because it's like you have to move one guy in order to move another guy. And like it gets really super complicated. I think it's like the most fitting end for him to finish his career in Cleveland. I don't think he should have given the Lakers as much time as he has. It's infuriating to me that
I agree.
He gave that franchise so much more benefit of the doubt than he did any of these other teams that would have and did do more with him. That's infuriating to me. But what's past is past. I think that's probably the most satisfying end for him. And it's also like the only place where he would probably be like, yes, this is like home. This is okay. And that his wife and daughter would be okay moving back to. That's probably like the only place. Other than that, it's like they're going to stay in LA and he's going to have to commute, which I think he's probably okay with for 6 months. I think he's probably okay with that. But it's, I think it's tough.
I like the idea of the Knicks. LeBron is just like knocking off, like I got the Lakers and I'll get the Knicks. Maybe I'll retire with the Celtics or the Bulls or something. Like, I don't know. Just knock off prestige franchises. But LeBron to the Knicks for OG Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson. That at least if you're the Knicks, you get to go, oh, we're going and getting LeBron. We're really making a run at this. But quietly, you're kind of just being like, well, we're getting off that OG Anunoby contract. LeBron comes off the books in a year, maybe 2 years if we give him like a 1-year extension on top of it or whatever. That could be fun. LeBron to the Warriors, straight up for Jimmy Butler. Just a fun story.
Yeah, fun story.
Last one here. LeBron and 2 first-round picks to the Celtics for Jaylen Brown. And if you're Boston, this would have been more interesting like a month ago before Boston made all their cap clearing moves. But this would have been a way to just get off the Jaylen Brown money and clear up the cap for when Jason Tatum comes back in one fell swoop. And you get to put LeBron James in a Celtics jersey, which would have been fun for new ownership. I thought that would have been really fun about a month ago, but now they've done most of the work where they probably don't have to do anything that dramatic.
Yeah, and I just think that their thing with Jalen, I just think is always going to be until Jalen actually is like, hey, I'm ready to move on. Until he hits that point, it's just not going to matter what anybody says. Like, it doesn't matter what this financial, like, they are too emotionally tied, I think, to Jalen. It's like Jason and then Jalen for them to actually move on. A couple others I kind of thought about. This is before the Nuggets made the Cam Johnson trade, but I pondered about a Jamal Murray deal for LeBron. And if you run LeBron at point and you're just like, hey, it's gonna be LeBron and Christian Brown and Cam Johnson and Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic. And your second unit is going to struggle because you're not going to have like a real guard playmaker, but now you have Bruce Brown, so you can do that a little bit more. It means that the Nuggets are able to clear salary and kind of restructure their books a little bit easier, faster, rather than the Jamal Murray one. The Lakers get Jamal Murray, so they get like a playoff certified killer who goes next to Luka in the secondary Robin,
that Kyrie Irving spot,
Kyrie Irving role, right? So that makes a lot of sense there.
That's fun.
I don't think they would ever move Aaron Gordon for LeBron. Do not think that they'd be interested in doing that. Phoenix has to be another candidate here just because it's so close to LA, right? So he's got an hour flight. I literally am just thinking of like, how long does it take to get to LA?
Right.
If he lives somewhere else, how long does it take? And so for me, that's like why Phoenix has to be kind of in this consideration. I just don't know.
It would have
like,
to be Beal, right? That's the only thing.
Yeah. And it's like, if the Lakers do that, I don't know why. Like, what's the upside there for them? So in general, I just I think the options for him going anywhere are really limited because of all sorts of things. One thing I will tell you is I do wonder if he really just decides this is it. I just wonder if there's a possibility that he does a buyout.
Mm-hmm.
And if he does a buyout and he just walks, that opens up a lot more interesting possibilities for him to be able to spend wherever he wants, however he wants at the end. I think that's a really interesting question.
I've wondered about it. If any, not to tell anybody how to handle their business, but if anybody could afford to give up $50+ million, it's LeBron. And if you ask the question to LeBron, would you pay $50 million right now? You are a certified billionaire. Let's keep this in mind. Would you pay $50 million right now for another championship? He might just say yes. I could spend $50 million right now and just add a ring to my collection. And if he looks at it that way and just says, okay, and just signs somewhere, I don't know how history would look at that championship. You know what I mean? But it would be very interesting for LeBron. I think the Heat would give him a call. Just going to throw that in there. Next tier.
All right. Let's go to, this is the gap year teams.
All right.
Boston, Memphis, Dallas, Portland, Indiana.
Okay.
So Boston, it's, from a championship perspective, like, how do they win a championship? And it's okay. Tatum comes back early, like John Corrales keeps hoping against hope that he will, instead of missing the entire year like he will. Simon snaps into place. Garza all of a sudden pops the same way that
Cornette
did. Tillman takes over a bigger role after basically being shelved all of last season. Jalen has a step back up season. He had, like, after getting healthy finally with the injuries that he's dealt with, he has a big bounce back. White and Brown keep them up along with the defense, and the inevitable 3-point barrage with Simons keeps them up for long enough for them to get to the deadline. They trade Simons and something else, and they make an addition, and they're able to make a run. But in reality, this is probably a gap year. Memphis, this is probably a gap year. They've got assets. They're developing Wells and Edie and Coward and everybody else that they've got. They're going to have some more tradable. I think they can make some moves in the end season, right? But they're committed around Ja and Jaren, at least for now. Trying to figure out, like, hey, can we make this stuff with Ja work? Can we get Ja back to where he was, or do we need to move on? Those kind of questions I think are big. They've got so many pieces they can trade.
Right.
They have so many pieces they can trade. I think that's an interesting team.
It feels like they took a step a calculated step back in the Bain deal, but now they could probably take a step forward because they have a bunch of assets. And worth noting here, Jaren Jackson Jr., turf toe that he had during an open run, needed surgery, and Jeff Stotts from Industry Close basically puts the estimate, according to his database at least, at about 3 months. So we'll see, what Jaren Jackson Jr. looks like at the other side of that. So I think Memphis is in the right tier here.
Who do you think is closer to a championship, Portland or Dallas?
Portland or Dallas?
Yeah.
I would say Dallas.
Right. That's what everyone's going to say. Why does anyone expect Kyrie Irving to be back?
Well, that's why they're here, right? That's why they're in the gap year tier.
Yeah.
Do you? So I say Dallas only because they have the guy. They got Cooper Flag. I still don't know who the guy is in Portland.
Yeah.
But you're right. I don't know why. Like, Kyrie Irving just got a big contract. He's going to be able to take his time with this injury, as he should. But who knows what he looks like on the other side of this? We talk about all these the Achilles injuries to guys like Halliburton and Tatum, and for some reason, Kyrie Irving at the other side of 30 keeps getting lumped into that group. He's not young like Halliburton and Tatum is. We don't know what he's going to look like on the other side of this injury.
Yeah. I have no reason to think that Kyrie Irving is going to return this season.
Yep.
If he does, great. If he comes back in January, like John Strani has reported, cool. They can make a run. They could definitely make a run if he gets back in January. It's half the season. Do I expect him back then? No. I think he's probably like, no, it's not quite right. Might come back. Oh, Kyrie, he's been ramping up. No, and then the season ends. Anthony Davis, I have a long-standing. I am frustrated by the conversation around him. He's an elite player, no question. The dude dunks on small guys, flexes, and then puts up 40 whenever he faces a small ball team, and everyone loses their mind. He plays a big team, and he usually has a quiet night and disappears, and everyone goes, where's Anthony Davis? We are too late in his career to be putting this man up in these conversations. He is not consistent enough. You can't have him be your best player and win a championship. You cannot win a championship with Anthony Davis as your best player. Cooper Flag is not reasonable to expect that kid to be ready to go in his rookie season and win. It's just not reasonable to expect that. I don't know what they're going to do with Gafford. I don't know what they're going to do with Lively. I don't know what they're going to do with anything. I don't know how any of this kind of fits together. Klay Thompson, what has he got left in the tank? They're old. They're fragile.
Yep.
And they got gifted Cooper. I feel bad for Cooper Flag for winding up there because there are so many places that would have been better for him to shine and get a better opportunity for him. Now he'll learn a lot, and that'll be really valuable for him later in his career. It really will. It'll be great for him, what he'll learn from those guys. But man, I look at Portland and I go, you got like 18 guys that can make a jump. And if any of those dudes make a jump, look out. That team's dangerous all of a sudden. They got a lot of talent there. They got trade chips. There's a lot of possibility there.
Portland is the quintessential. I like that guy. I like this guy. I like that guy. When you're looking at their roster and then you look at, well, how's this all going to fit together? I'm not sure anymore. Right. But they have a bunch of guys I like. Dallas, fun fact, D'Angelo Russell and Klay Thompson played on the same team for 4 months. This will be the first time they ever play a minute together. So that'll be fun.
Cool.
Talking about the Golden State days, obviously. I don't know what the Mavericks do. It feels like they had a plan, and then they ended up getting the number 1 pick, and they got Cooper Flag and kind of went ass backwards into a better plan.
Yep.
But how soon does Nico Harrison admit defeat on the first plan and go all in on the Cooper Flag plan?
Right.
Especially for a guy who basically is, I'm probably not going to be here in 8 days, so what do I care?
So much interesting stuff this summer, man.
Yep.
If you had put AD on the market, and then like, hey, what do you give me? Like, imagine what the Bucks would have given for you. Like, imagine what all these teams would have given up for you. You would have had so many opportunities to reset the franchise and put yourself in a fantastic move going forward after you nuked it with that trade. And then you get Kyrie back. If he comes back in January, play him 3 months, and then deal him this summer, great. There's so much opportunity that they could have done.
Anthony Davis would get you a ton on the open market if you would have just walked away from the Kyrie Irving money and just ate it and just said, you know what, let's just let Cooper Flag fly for a year and see what happens. We got Derek Lively, who we like. There's PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, Max Christie. These are all nice pieces that everybody likes. Could have been interesting. Indiana, I feel like we should talk about them since they were in the NBA Finals. Obviously, we know why they're here. I'll be interested to see what they do at the center spot. The more I thought about it, as much of a bummer it is, and pretty inexcusable that you walk away from Miles Turner just because you don't want to pay the luxury tax as a team in the NBA Finals. That part is deplorable, I guess, is a strong enough word. At the same time, I think they're going to be okay. I like Miles Turner. I don't love Miles Turner. He was not good in the NBA Finals. Missed 22 of his 28 three-point attempts in that series. And when he's not making threes, he's not really anything. He doesn't do anything on offense. I thought he was very good defensively, and I want to give him his credit. But offensively, he's not as dynamic. And without Tyrese Halliburton there to kind of spoon feed him on those pick and pops, I don't know what he's going to look like this year for Indiana. And frankly, I don't know what he's going to look like for Milwaukee. So I always think about this quote that Halliburton, he said it when he first got to Indiana, and he said it again during the NBA Finals, telling reporters, like, when I first got here, talking about Miles Turner, he was like, when I first got here, I was used to pick and roll bigs like Rashawn Holmes, who he played with in Sacramento. And then I kind of got used to playing with a pick and pop guy like Miles Turner. I wonder if because I think people are trying to figure out what's the next pick and pop center to put who's the Miles Turner replacement for Indiana. I just wonder if they go the other direction and say, you know what, you used to like pick and roll bigs. I bet you'd still like him now. Maybe they trade for Rashawn Holmes. He's in Washington right now, so he's gettable.
You know what's annoying? They should have just kept Jalen Smith.
Yeah.
They just should have kept Jalen Smith, man.
Yeah.
Jalen Smith would be great as a starter on this team. Great.
He might be available. Chicago's trading, guys.
I mean, they should go do that deal right now. Yeah, I mean, look, I just okay. The number one person online that everyone listens to about the Indiana Pacers is Caitlin Cooper. Like, we all respect Caitlin and think that she's the smartest person out there about the Pacers. And she was very much like, I like Miles. He's probably the fourth best defender on the team. He was way more of a liability in the conference finals and finals. And I think that was matchup dependent. I think the matchups were a problem for him in those things, because I thought he was great in the Cavs series. He killed him. But you go off of those two things, you're losing Hallie for the year, and then you see Naz Reid get that number. I think they're thinking they made a strategic effort that sometimes you do have to play hardball as an NBA team. Like, you just do. Like, there's times. And they made a calculated gamble that there wasn't any money in the market. The Pistons didn't have the money to put in the $40 million offer for him. There was nobody to really threaten them until the Bucks waived Damian Lillard.
Right.
Like, if the Bucks don't waive Dame, who else is putting out the money to beat out this offer, right? From the Pacers. And I think it was insulting to Miles, given what he's given to the franchise. But also, like, sometimes you have to make those calculated moves. And the idea is, like, look, he's still going to win with us. We love him. He's beloved. He's still going to make $25 million a year. It's great. Like, yeah, it's not the best for him, but that's how it goes sometimes in business. And they ran into a black swan event, which was Damian Lillard got waived, and the Bucks came through with the offer. I don't think it was fair to Miles how this thing went down, but he wound up in a pretty good spot. Pacers have a year to figure out stuff because they don't really need to do anything this year because Hallie's out for the entire season. It's gonna be a brutal year for them. It's just gonna be annoying and frustrating and difficult because everything is gonna be, yeah, but when Tyrese gets back. I've covered those seasons. I covered that season with Jamal Murray. It's annoying.
Right.
It's just an obnoxious year where you're stuck in limbo. It's just where they are, but they got a year to figure it out.
I think that they could also use somebody who's a lot more aggressive on the boards. Miles Turner was not much of a factor as a rebounder. I do think that there's a way out where they end up being better. If they can get a guy who runs the floor at an elite level, they're going to bring back Isaiah Jackson, right? Like, I like
this
him.
Idea of transitioning to a pick and roll man. I like this idea of giving him a lob threat. I like this idea a lot. It's a smart idea, Wes.
And somebody who can rebound and kind of maul guys a little bit.
Yeah.
That would be very nice for them. I think that would be, again, I always look for a little bit of snot factor. They've got Aaron Nesmith, who's a snotty kind of guy. I think they can use another guy like that.
Benedict Mathurin, sign and trade for Jalen Duren. Get it done.
I like that. That's the kind of player, though, right? Like, that kind of player.
Yeah.
Next year.
We have 1, 2, 4 more tiers. They go pretty quickly here.
All right, let's go.
This is just unserious teams. I love you, but you're not serious. Sacramento, Phoenix, the Miami Heat, and the New Orleans Pelicans.
This hurts. I hate that Miami's lumped in with Sacramento, Phoenix, and New Orleans. but I understand it. So this is tough.
I mean,
this
what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do with a play-in team that snuck in and got housed by the Cleveland Cavaliers? There's not a lot to do here. They're just no longer. Here's the thing: they're no longer scary. They're just no longer like, you're not scared of the Kings. You're not scared of the Suns now. You're not scared of the Pelicans, and you're not scared of the Heat. There's no fear here. You're just like, okay. And like, look, some burblings that they are actually finally committing to going young, and we'll see how long that Pat can stand that before he makes one more damn it, we're trading everybody thing and does something drastic. I think they should give up the ghost. I'm not one of those guys that thinks you should always tear it down. I think this is one situation where you should definitely be like, we get more out of trading Bam. We get more out of trading Tyler. We can set ourselves up really well for the future. If you trade Tyler to the San Antonio Spurs, you get talent that's on your timeline, and you probably get some picks. Like, they could use Tyler Hero on that team specifically. Mm-hmm. That's a really good fit there. You trade Bam, and you're going to get a haul. You'll get an insane, an incredible.
If you were San Antonio, would you do Hero for Fox straight up?
No,
you would not. Would you do Hero plus stuff for Fox, and just move Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle into the point guard spot?
That's an interesting idea. Probably no.
Okay.
Because Fox is like the one guy that was like, yes, I want to be in San Antonio.
Totally fair. And I don't think that Tyler Hero is.
Yeah, you can't turn around and trade that guy. But look, I would see. I'm more like, hey, Jeremy Sohan and a bunch of picks for Tyler Hero is like really good. So, and I get the Tyler. Like, I thought Tyler was the best player, should have won Most Improved Player last year.
Yep.
I thought Tyler was great last year, but like,
Bam would get
Tyler Hero.
Bam would get a haul if they actually decided to trade him. A team like Detroit would throw everything. They'd be like, okay, cool, accelerated timeline. We got Cade, we got Bam, we have a Star Thompson. Let's rock and roll.
Yep.
That's just one team that comes to mind, for instance, right?
Yep. And there'd be a ton of them. The list would be huge.
Yep. So, I'm gonna push back for the sake of my own credibility and just say I'm gonna put Miami in my gap year tier because they're gonna have cap space in 2026.
Cool.
I'm saying that to save face, Matt. Just let me have it. Cool. Sacramento, Phoenix, New Orleans. Jesus Christ, I don't know what's happening there.
I want to say this about New Orleans.
Okay, please.
The going from 23 to 13 was bad. Okay, no one disagrees. You can't not trade the 2026. It was universally bad. I get it. If you look at their roster construction, and you take out Zion because of Zion's Zionness, and you're like, let's go backwards. Yves Missi or Kevon Looney, who I really like that pickup of. Derek Queen at power forward. Trey Murphy III. Herb Jones. That doesn't sound like DeJounte's thrilled to be there. It doesn't sound like it's a great spot for him necessarily. But insert point guard here, even if it's just like Jose Alvarado. Okay? The roster makes a little bit of sense. Their bank, what everyone misses is the Pelicans think Trey Murphy III is the dude. Like, they think it's him. Like, they think that's the guy. And you can very easily watch these games and walk away being like, yeah, he might be the guy. Yep. Like, you can talk yourself into that very easily.
I love him.
That's the gamble. If you disagree with that, I don't blame you. Let's say that we're in the middle, though. Let's say that he's not an all-star, all-NBA selection, but he's not just like a random role player. He's in the middle. That probably gets you to a point where that 2026 pick is not a disaster. It's not horrific. You've given up 2 picks for 1. That's bad. But it's no longer this flaming, oh my God, what have you done?
Well, you know what they're pissed at is when they see Milwaukee buy out Damian Lillard. I guess it didn't so much matter for the 2026 pick because it's the better of the Milwaukee New Orleans pick, but it's tough. Here's the thing with New Orleans and why I continue to make fun of them. Joe DeMars is in charge of the whole thing right now. In his career, he's drafted Darko Milicic, Rodney White, Mateen Cleaves. 3 of the biggest draft busts in the lottery of all time. And he went all in on Jeremiah Fears at 7, who I was not high on, And Derek Queen, who a lot of people liked, and I'm not going to sit here and claim I know a ton about Derek Queen. I watched a lot of Maryland tape, but a lot of people like Derek Queen. But if Joe DeMars really liked Derek Queen enough to move all of heaven and earth to go get him, I like him a little bit less now.
Oh, he also built a championship team.
He didn't do it through the draft.
That's true. It's true.
His draft history is rough.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But we've also done this before the other way, where it's like the Spurs have drafted guys and we've been like, oh my God. And then it's like, oh, he's just like, do you remember, who was it? I can't remember that guy's name. The Warriors drafted somebody the year after the 2015 title. And we all like lost our minds at how can you possibly give this team that guy?
I know who you're talking about.
And then it was just like, he was nothing.
Was it Jacob Evans?
No, it was somebody else. But like, we just like lost our minds over it. And we tend to think that the teams that draft well are always going to draft well. And the Raptors kind of had this happen where it's like it was like Norman Powell and OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam. And it was like, look at this development plan. And then it was like, oh, Chris Boucher. Oh, like eventually you do kind of run out of powder, so to speak. So, I get what you're saying though on the Dumars thing.
Damian Jones?
No, it was, who was it?
I'm curious.
But yeah, it was really interesting. I think the way that we kind of all like everyone freaked out over those picks, and then didn't really they just didn't wind up being. It was Jordan Bell. That's who it was.
Oh, that's right, and that ended up not being awesome.
Yeah, it's Jordan Bell.
He was one of the first next Draymond Greens. Yeah,
and then like Patrick McCaw. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, you idiots! Let them get Patrick McCaw."
Mm-hmm.
And those guys might have been good players, but
next tier.
Okay, we can run through these real quick. It's 3 tiers, 2 teams each. The 7th tier is Toronto and Chicago, where I like a lot of what they have, but not enough, and they have huge. It's like, oh, I like that guy, and I like that guy, and oh, but not that guy, and that's a really big part of it. Like, I'm really excited about, I just think, I wish they would have traded RJ Barrett. I want to see RJ Barrett on a different team so badly. He's really good. And now he's going to vanish under Brandon Ingram's mid-range obsession, and I'm just very mad about it. I hate that. I like a lot of their guys. I just like a lot of the Raptors guys. And Ingram will probably raise their floor a little bit, but not enough for them to be serious.
Chicago still needs to re-sign Josh Giddey.
And they're going to re-sign Josh Giddey. We'll see if they keep Kobe after they do that. There's a lot of concern that they were going to move Kobe if they re-sign Giddey because of various cap things. I still don't know. I like Okoro, but good God, why do you do that deal? They have the capacity to do some interesting things, but they won't. And so Donovan will still get them to be pretty good. Donovan's underrated. He just gets his teams to be pretty good. No matter what you hand them, it's like, oh yeah, they're really good. They're one level above what the talent should be. So Chicago is it's fine. These teams are just kind of there. They have some guys, but not enough for you to be ooh.
Vucevic could be a sneaky Turner replacement for a year if they want to do that.
Do you realize he's making less money than Jakob Poeltl now?
There's a lot of people making less money than Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl.
What was that deal? We're
not trading Kevin Durant for we're not trading Jakob Poeltl with Kevin Durant. No, thank you.
Find someone who loves you the way that Bobby Webster loves Jakob Poeltl. It's insane. The 8th tier is Charlotte and Washington. I love this Wizards team, and I'm going to watch so many games of them this year. They are my pet team. But I'm going to bet them more aggressively because last year I was like, oh, Detroit's not going to win 30 games, but they're going to go over 24.5 for sure. And then I lost out on a lot of money by not betting the progressive alts and playoffs and etc. So I kind of have to do it with the Wizards. It's if I'm right, I need to be opening the door for them to be way better, but they're not going to be. I think the Wizards are going to win 32 games, but I love so many guys on their roster. Charlotte's just going to keep kind of being. I like some of the moves. I really do. Pat Connaughton and 2 second rounders was that was a great pickup. That was such a great pickup for them. They've done a lot.
I like that. I like their draft pick. I like Knipple.
Yep.
I like Colin Sexton and Trey Mann as scoring options. It's hey LaMelo, you don't have to take all of them now.
While we were on this podcast, Wes, they signed Spencer Dinwiddie.
They did do that, huh?
So, Wes, why do they have Colin Sexton and Spencer Dinwiddie and Trey Mann
just in case LaMelo gets injured?
Yeah.
Or
It's a lot of insurance.
it's quite a bit of insurance.
Just something to ponder about for the next couple of months, or weeks, or maybe hours. So that's the 8th tier. I like Hornets and Wizards have some upward mobility, and then the last tier is just Brooklyn and Utah. Like, we know what the deal is.
Shout out to Washington. From February to now, however many months that is, 4, 5, getting serious, turning into a serious basketball team. Not in a way that they're going to win a lot of games, but in the way that they don't have Kyle Kuzma or Jordan Poole on the roster anymore.
After January 1st, ranked 20th in defensive rating, and you go like, okay, you know how big of a jump that is. If you're one of those bottom tier teams, all you got to do is get out of the bottom 3. The worst teams are like, yeah, they're bottom 3 in both offense and defense. If you get out of that, that means that there's something there. Wizards have, I'm telling you, Keyshawn George, Bilal Coulibaly, Star really impressed me down the stretch of that season. I like so many of their guys. So many.
And swapping out Jordan Poole for CJ McCollum and on an expiring contract was sneaky good. They got Kelly Olynyk, who everybody seems to like a little bit.
Yep.
And I like getting Trey Johnson for them. I think that's a good player and a good spot for him. Knockdown shooter around all these like toolsy prospects that they've accumulated.
If they're hanging in the 8, 9, 10 around the deadline, right? They'll have to make that a really tough decision, which is just like, okay, we probably need to just make another shot for the lottery. We probably need to trade Chris and CJ and KO and just like get what we can for them and then tank out. But if they don't, I really think that they could make the play-in tournament. And it's like, that's like the worst place to be, right? Is trapped in hell. But it's like, yeah, but you made it with this team that's so young. With
for them, it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. So I think it'll be really interesting to see kind of how they approach this and what they want to do. One of the things I'm most interested about, Wes, is how these teams are going to react in terms of a competitive standpoint with how much the draft lottery last year was like for a lot of teams, people I've talked to in the league, it was like that was the last straw. Like we suffered so much. We had such painful seasons. Our fans were miserable. Nobody came to our games. It was not serious. It was miserable to work in. And we wound up with a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th pick. We did all of this, and that's what we wind up with. While the Mavericks get the 1. So I think I'm very curious to see what tanking manifests like in 2026.
Less of an appetite?
Yeah, I think so.
Hope so. That's better for everybody. Matt, another successful round of tiers. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks for having me.